If you neglect matters of the mind and allow it to be governed by the things that it should not be governed by, what is it? Dead. But the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. Romans chapter 1, verse 28 to 32. I'm about to show you the result of a neglected mind. It says, furthermore, just as they did not think, what did they not do? They did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God. In other words, stop for a second. They thought it was okay to take what they knew about God and not pay any mind to it. They did not think it necessary to pay attention to what they learned from God, what they learned from their teachings. So what happened? God gave them over to the depraved mind. Let me give you a practical example. When you tell those of us who have kids or you have friends or you have people in your life where you're trying to tell them, trying to instruct them in something, at some point you just stop helping them. Yes or no? At some point, look, you don't want to listen? Do you? Yes or no? Because they got to learn one way or another. They did not learn by instruction. They did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge that was given to them. So guess what? Go do you. Look what happens here. God's talking about the people of Israel at this time, but he's also talking to us. He's saying because they didn't think it was worthwhile to hold on to the knowledge of God, you know what he did? Hey, go do you. He let them over to a depraved mind. You know what a depraved mind is? It's a neglected mind. The word depraved means reduced in quality. It's been neglected. It's been neglected. What is the result of a depraved mind? Because God's like, look, you don't want to think about what I have for you? Do you? So, let's go back to 28. I'll start it again. Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind, so that they do what ought not to be done. What is the result of a neglected mind? You're going to end up doing what ought not to be done. Are you hearing me? It's not just a thought. It's the condition of the mind that is now being turned over. When you don't capture this thought, this is the result. It says in verse 29, they have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips, slanderers, God-haters, insolent, arrogant, and boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They have no understanding, no fidelity, no love, no mercy. Although they knew God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. Somebody say with me, ouch. The result of a neglected mind are all these things. You say, but it's just a thought. Nobody sees me. Nobody hears me. That's not the point. You're about to be let go into the fullness of your thoughts. Are you hearing me? Are you guys hearing me? You can't let go of your mind. Like it's more serious than we thought. Every action starts with a thought. They didn't think to retain the knowledge of God. They neglected their mind. Their thoughts led to a feeling of certain kind of way, which then in turn changed the intentions to another kind of way, which then led to an action that manifested itself. Like if you don't capture your thoughts, they're going to run away on you. And when they run away on you, you can't often get them back. Every person who ever got into trouble in all the scripture, if we look to it, each one of them was because they were not in their right mind. They had neglected their mindset. Think about it, for example. If you guys know the scriptures, Moses, he got frustrated at the people. They were complaining. He's like, I'm trying to save you guys, and all you guys do is complain. What did he do out of frustration and anger? He banged the rock, and he was disqualified. He let his thoughts of frustration get the better of him. What about Samson? What happened with Samson? Samson, the strongest dude ever lived. But because his wife was nagging and nagging and nagging, what did he do? He's frustrated, just whatever. And he lost all his strength. He let the frustration of the moment get to him. What about David? You guys know the story of David? He let his lustful intentions get. He said, "Oh, she looked good." And he let that picture play out in his mind. So if I could just get her over here. Are you guys hearing me? And what happened? The thought went too far. He ended up doing what he should not have done. And then that led to other things that he should not have done. What was just a thought of lust turned into adultery, and then turned into murder, because now he had to cover up the sins of his thoughts because he neglected the matters of his mind. If he would have just said, "Woo, she looked good, but I can't be looking at that," and turned away, it would never have happened. It's like we literally have to capture. Here's what I do. When my mind starts wandering, I literally tell myself, get back here. I have to capture my thought. Look what it says in Scriptures. 2 Corinthians chapter 10:5. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. There are times in my life where my mind is wandering so far, I got to say, you better get back here, thoughts, because that is not the mind of Christ that Christ has given you. That is not the way you need to be thinking. And then every now and then it's like, oh, but I want to keep thinking it. And then I gotta take it back. Sometimes it's a fight. I didn't put the scripture in here, but it says in the book of Romans, I forget what chapter, I'll get it for you later, but in the book of Romans, he says there's this war in my mind of what I'm supposed to do and what I know I'm not supposed to. There's a war, there's a battle. And that taken captive, if you don't grab that thought and sit it down, it's going to run off on you. And it's going to turn out to be something you didn't intend it to be. Your intentions were not to fall into adultery, but all of a sudden you did. Your intention wasn't to steal, but you thought, man, if I just had a couple of extra dollars. Are you hearing me? It started with the thought, guys. We got to take those thoughts captive. Don't neglect matters of the mind. Don't think it's just innocent. Oh, nobody sees it, nobody hears it. No, God does. Oftentimes, however, not only do we need to take captive these thoughts, my second point that I want to give you guys today is we have to learn to regain fresh perspective. You guys know you get lost in the sauce, you get all caught up in the weeds and the day-to-day, and it beats you down, and that oftentimes gives way to, you know what, how can I get out of this? And that gives way to the thoughts. A lot of times we've just got to learn to step back and regain fresh perspective. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll just step out of my current moment. Like if I'm at work and I've got issues that I can't resolve, I got to step out of my moment for a second. I just walk out the front door of my office, grab a breath of fresh air, stand by the trees, look up, just do something different in the moment to gain a fresh perspective. Here's a fun fact. How many of you guys know that many of the things that you worry about, many of the things you're struggling about, will never even come to pass? But you've allowed it to suffocate your present.